degree in governance and public policy, and she's here to tell us more about her experience as a social entrepreneur. So please welcome Wendy Balcázar.
Thank you, Gabi. Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this seminar for the invitation. I'll start quickly introducing myself. As you already said, my name is Wendy Balcázar. I am partner and co-founder of Cana, a social enterprise that works with incarcerated women in Mexican prisons by bringing productive programs and workshops aimed at achieving the inmates' effective reintegration process and improving their quality of life. I'm gonna share with you my screen here because I would like to start with this idea. They say it is not about the what in entrepreneurship, that the real power rests in the why. I start with this idea because I would like to begin explaining a little bit of the reasons behind this adventure of starting and building a business from and in the most unexpected places to make a positive difference in our country. And to do that, I would like to take you on a journey to the past when we were around 19 years old. Back then, we were law school students, and we were invited to be part of a project that sought to provide legal assistance to incarcerated people in the state of Mexico. Personally, at the time, I had the dream to become a criminal lawyer. And well, so it was difficult for me to deny the invitation. And the first prison we visited was this one. This is Barrientos, a prison in the state of Mexico. And I could tell you that it was a life-changing experience for me because going inside a prison allowed us to see first the undignified conditions in which people are kept in our prisons. And above all, we had the opportunity to listen the life stories of the people who get to live there behind those bars for many, many years. As you can imagine, I could spend, well, hours here sharing thousands of anecdotes and stories that made a very profound impression on me. And one of those stories was that of a woman named Rosa Julia. Rosa Julia was born in the mountain range of Guerrero in a little village where young girls were not allowed to attend school, where little girls were sold to foreigners at the age of 12 years old. And well, that was not the case of Rosa Julia, but when she was 19, a foreigner got her pregnant. So she became a single mom, and what she wanted was to give her daughter better opportunities and a better life. And that's why she wanted to travel to Mexico City to study a course in gardening and landscaping. And she shared this idea with an old friend who offered to help her. She told her, Rosa Julia, don't worry, I can help you with the accommodation and travel expenses, if only in return you could help me bring a package to Mexico City. And so she agreed. They traveled together. And what she remembers is arriving to Mexico City, being at the airport in the security band just before leaving, like going to the exit, and hearing in the distance some men yelling, "Federal police, ma'am, please stop." Of course, she never imagined that she was being yelled at until she felt a dog. She even remembers the name of this dog called Marcos, biting and pulling her sandals. And they asked her to open the package. Meanwhile, she was trying to explain that it didn't belong to her, that it belonged to the person who accompanied her. But as much as she yelled at her friend, well, she never even looked back. The police, of course, opened the package, and her surprise was to discover and to realize that the content of the package was a drug called heroin. At that moment, Rosa was arrested. She was sexually assaulted by the authorities and then sentenced to 13 years in prison. As a young woman and wanting to be a lawyer back then, you can imagine that listening to these stories was definitely, as I told you, well, life-changing for me and for my partners as well. Because it made us understand that there is a part of of the story that the media and the authorities rarely tell us about our penitentiary system. And that has to do with the background from which the vast majority of incarcerated people come from. And most of them grew up in poverty, in deep poverty, actually. Many of them didn't have access to basic education. Many weren't working or were earning very little before incarceration. We learned also that many women resort to criminal activities as a source of income and a way to get out of this poverty, this inequality, this violence and exclusion in which they live. And precisely this is how they end up in prisons and how they end locked up in a system that only deepens those disadvantages and those inequalities. So through this process of visiting the prisons and listening to so many stories similar to the one of Rosa Julia, we realized that, well, almost everyone we lock up in prison supposedly in order to keep people safe will one day be released back into our communities. And the inevitable question for us in that moment was, how will the prison guarantee that the day they return to their communities, people would stay or will stay away from crime? Because we were aware that they were going to return to the same unfavorable conditions I was just telling you about. And to that, we had to add the criminal record and the social stigma that would limit even more the opportunity to start a new life or to get a new job upon release. So even if they had the legal assistance we were kindly offering them, the well, there was a high probability that that we were going to see that people returning to prison. And all of this made us understand that only isolating people behind these bars cannot solve the problem of insecurity in Mexico nor in other countries. Instead, what we as a society, what the government, what the authorities need to do is to address the structural causes of crime. For example, we noticed here in Barrientos that there were no opportunities or programs to give them life skills that could prevent people from continuing to commit crimes upon release. And we saw something that few people know, I think, that is that even inside prison there is a tremendous economic need. Although they tell us that our part of our taxes are destined to well to the criminal facilities and to give at least the basic needs to these people, the reality is that everything inside prison has a price, even exactly the most basic needs, like having access to drinking water, being able to eat something decent, having salt, hygiene products, and well, a long list. And that's why it is not surprising, I think, that in Mexico, crimes and extortion continue to be committed even within the prisons. Because, for example, in the case of women, they are usually abandoned, and they do not have like this family supporting them economically, and so it's really hard for them to have an income inside prison to have access to these needs. So we noticed that many women elaborated these traditional handcrafts that you can see in the left side, and they would sell them on weekends during visitation hours. But of course, very few would buy them. And we tried to help them, like selling this to our friends and relatives. But of course, the quality wasn't enough to sell many of them. So we thought that if they could produce a product that could compete like any other in the market, a quality product that could provide them an income to improve not only their quality of life inside, but also help support their families while serving as sentences. Maybe, I mean, many of these women are moms, and some of them even live with their children inside prisons, and others have their children on the outside, and they'll still need, well, to support their families. Of course, The prison facilities do not make it possible to have an industrial warehouse or the necessary equipment to manufacture any product you can imagine. So after a long trial and error process, we decided to start a job training and employment program by training women in knitting and embroidery techniques, because this material was easy to store inside prison. We didn't need like this big space, so it was easy for them, and they already knew like the basic technique. So we held a workshop weekly in Barrientos, and this way, what happened is that women who have been systematically excluded and abandoned started earning new skills and earning a living away from crime, from violence, and of course from poverty inside prison. I can tell you this story like really fast and in some minutes, but of course the road wasn't easy. You know, for example, these were the products they made at the beginning. We always say that we don't know how we dare to go out and sell this, and we were like really proud back then. But over the years and after a long way of learning and discovering their talents, they have accomplished these beautiful products. And that's how La Cana started to take shape. Officially, the company was incorporated in 2016. This program that started back then in only one prison, that was Barrientos, has been replicated. And we currently work in 3 penitentiaries in the state of Mexico: Barrientos, as I was telling you, Nezahualcóyotl del Sur, and Ecatepec, and one more in Mexico City known as Santa Marta, Acatitla. Obviously, the inmates are paid for these handmade products, which are then sold around the country and internationally through our online store, as you can see here. Our social media, we have one point of sale in one of the most important shopping centers in the country, Centro Comercial Santa Fe. We also sell through collaborations with other stores in local bazaars, through special and wholesale orders for events such as, baby showers, children's parties, corporate or university events. And what I can tell you is that in 4 years, around 350 women have accessed these employment, training, and wage job opportunities. What they do with the money they earn is they're able to fulfill their basic needs, which in most cases, as I was telling you, are not provided by the correctional facilities. Currently, 160 women, 164 to be exact, women work with us inside prison. Around 25 have obtained their freedom, and some of them still work with us, but now on the outside, of course. Others were channeled to other formal employments. Well, we're proud because we have created a brand where throughout the thousands of handmade products, as this you see here in my screen, are sold monthly, and we are able to make visible the problem in our prisons. And as well, or at the same time, offer women new skills to allow them to choose employment rather than reoffending upon release. We also have incredible stories of these products joining other causes. For example, in 2017, when a powerful earthquake struck Mexico, well, the inmates from prisons of Barrientos, Ecatepec, Neza needed this famous rescue dog called Frida. Maybe some of you remember that. And they did it in order to aid and gather funds for the earthquake victims of September 19. These funds were destined to rebuild the homes of those who lost it all. And well, they donated like the part they were, their income, let's say, and they were able to rebuild 7 homes in the mountain range of Guerrero, of people who lost their homes at that time. They have also participated in making this octopi for the premature babies of the Mexican Social Security Institute. And lately, because of the health crisis, the pandemic crisis, the weavers created some doctor and nurse stuffed animals. And for every product we sold, we donated protective material to the health personnel in hospitals that take care of patients with COVID-19 here in Mexico. Of course, you can imagine this had made them feel like they are part of a greater cause, but they also feel like they are still part of the society, even though they've been excluded and they've been put behind some bars. Over time, what we realized is that having an income was not enough because, well, what we had to do is also follow these work with mental health workshops, um, with professional psychologists. And what they do is to help resignify the inmates' understanding of themselves and work with topics such as depression, anxiety, maternity in prison, domestic violence, amongst others. Because as you can imagine, well, in the conditions they were living before and now in prison, it is, of course, it is not easy for them. And this is also complemented with other focus areas, such as activities in arts, culture, and sports. We have a follow-up after release program that well works with psychological care and the opportunity to get a decent work. As I was telling you, sometimes we channel these women to have a formal employment upon release, and we accompany them in their process of reintegration into society. We also have an area of human rights defense where we litigate cases where women have been wrongly convicted. And we have a public policy area, which I'm in charge of. And because it is important to remark that in Mexico's penitentiary system, there are no job opportunities practically. Actually, the Human Rights National Commission recently stated that in around 66% of our prisons in Mexico, there are no job opportunities. And the majority of those that do exist are poorly paid or do not represent stable and formal jobs in the economy. Worse still, prison labor is not legally regulated at a local level. So this has been a big problem for us, of course. But we're working towards legal reforms in order to guarantee inmates' labor rights. Recently, we exposed this necessity with senators of various political parties, and many of them agreed in March of this year to submit a bill and amendments to the national law on criminal enforcement in order to regulate Mexican prison labor. Well, as you can imagine, we of course are proud of all the results we have seen over the years. We're seeking to continue empowering women to create a better future for themselves, but also for their families, for their kids. We believe this is done by giving them the tools to grow in an economic sense, but also on a personal level. But however, there is still so much work to do because in Mexico, the prison population totals 200,000 persons, of whom 95% are men and 5% are women. And we only have covered 350 in 4 years. So imagine the amount of population that do not have access to these programs or to have a job opportunity and to have skills to prepare for life after being released. So what we look forward is to replicate and expand our model to as many prisons as possible and consolidate La Cana as a powerful brand where, as I already said, throughout these crafts and handmade prison products sold monthly, we can tell another story. We tell the empowering stories of incarcerated people that are turning their lives around. So, well, going back to that initial question about why is it that we do what we do, I can tell you that our mission is to transform detention into a time of learning. What we envision is a future where our prisons are no longer only places of punishment, but of opportunity, where people who have wronged can find a place of healing and the chance to live their lives in the best expression of themselves when they regain freedom. Because we are aware that whatever we stop doing right now may be the reason we become victims in the future. Of course, we never imagined that we could accomplish this through a needle and a yarn. So for those of you who want to become social entrepreneurs, believe in your why. I encourage you to be clear about the problem you'd like to solve. Surely there will be many challenges, uh, but none, I think, big enough to abandon your cause. For us, the biggest challenges, I think, are, well, the ones that all entrepreneurs have, like the cash flow management, raising funds and investment capital, building a business plan. Imagine we were all lawyers, and then a psychologist joined us as a partner. Of course, about finance, we didn't know a thing. But, well, you have to be willing to learn and to admit that you don't know everything. Also, another challenge is hiring employees, having a team, building a team that believes as much as you do in the dream. They say that the bigger the dream, the more important the team, and I agree with that thought. Also, managing your time is a big challenge, and the most important, I think, is to don't lose sight of the original mission in the drive to become more profitable. Because I'm convinced that the job behind every social entrepreneur is finding new ideas to change the world, leaving the world a better place. What we chose was our penitentiary system because, well, as Nelson Mandela used to say, no one truly knows a nation until one has been inside its jails. A nation should not be judged by how it treats its highest citizens, but its lowest ones. And we're convinced that now it is up to us as a society, whether the people within our prisons are simply marking time or working hard to turn their lives around. From Lacana's experience, we've had the opportunity to witness how something as simple as buying a product that represents a cause means much more than only acquiring something new. It means changing the life behind the hands of the women who made it. It means bringing hope to a family. It means bringing hope to a whole country. It means, and with that, with this, I'll start concluding my intervention. It means investing and leveling the playing field by empowering people with the potential to create a more inclusive, more empathetic, and peaceful society. So, to all of you who are listening and who took the time to listen to this experience, well, I encourage you to find your why, and hopefully soon I'll be part of the audience listening to your own experience of how you are changing the world and living it a better place. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Wendy. We have some comments and questions in the chat, so I will read them now. Good morning from Kipling Campus, Irapuato. Another one is amazing example of resilience. Congratulations on the great work. We have a question here. What recommendation would you give students when thinking about creating a business or a social aid project? Do you have any recommendation?
Well, I think what I said at the beginning, you have to find like the problem you want to solve first, because sometimes, I think when we're young, that happens to us. Like you want to solve, you don't know what, but you want to solve something, and it's easier to make a plan if you have like something specifically, and that was what happened to us. No, something that started like wanting to go and give some legal assistance. We started getting to know the problem and realizing that what we had to do was to address the structural cause of that problem, and that was the economic need. And well, then we became like this holistic reintegration program, right? But yeah, I think that would be it.
Okay, thank you. What a great and passionate testimony. I have another question here. I can imagine there is some restrictions for you to bring this program to the prisons. Would you say it is part of the challenge?
Yes, of course. Getting inside the prisons, I mean, the authorities at first, like, they question, why do you want to enter the prisons? And but at the end, when they start seeing your job, they realize that you are only collaborating with their mission. No, it's their work actually. But we also have to understand that if us as a society don't care about the people there, it's hardly in the agenda, in the public agenda, and in the agenda of the government, of the authorities. That's why we like still there.
Perfect. Thank you. This was always a great story. Thanks for sharing. I have another question. During the planning stage of the process, what would you recommend us to be our priorities? I think she mentioned the entrepreneurial process. What do you think is a priority?
Well, I think the priority in a social entrepreneur, I think, is the problem you want to solve, like define it, then find how you're going to solve it. Like, do not marry the how. No, what happened to us is, like, we started with some products. We saw that in the market that wasn't, it didn't. It wasn't selling that much, and so we had to change it. And during the process, you go learning. No, it is a trial and error process. I think a business plan and getting some advice from other people that already travel that that journey is a very good recommendation. For example, now I think there are some accelerators, and they can help you a lot. We didn't have that at the time. But like when we were 2 years with the company, we started finding these opportunities, and it was like really reassuring and really like lightening for us.
Of course. Thank you. Amazing and inspiring. This is such an amazing story and very inspiring. And there's another question. Thank you for this amazing and inspiring project. What would you say are the most important abilities as a team that a team needs to have for start a project like this?
I think first realize that we are all different, that we all have our talents, and that well, that is what makes a great team. No, um, and you have to be, if you are like the leader of the team, you have to be clear on the dream you're pursuing, because maybe you had that clear at the beginning, but the other people need to feel why they're doing the things. So because well, when you start, you cannot pay like these great incomes and stuff. So the time they spend, the time they invest in your dream has to be also shared with your team. You know, I think that is really important too.
Thank you. And I have another comment here. Amazing. More than a plan, I think it became a life-changing experience to everyone involved. Such an outstanding story, very passionate towards your work. Wendy, so much love and inspiration to follow. How the funds go back to the inmates. And can you share here the website address to share with others?
Yeah, it's www.lacana.mx, and all our social media, it's at lacanamx. Yeah.
Okay, and the question was how the funds go back to the inmates.
How the found? Sorry, I didn't.
How the funds, like how you bring the money back to the inmates.
Okay. Well, this is a very difficult process because, as I was telling you, prison labor is not regulated at a local level. So it depends on the prison. So, for example, in Barrientos, we make a transfer, a deposit transfer to an account of the authorities, and then the authorities like give that income to the women. But for example, in NESA, they work with another system that is like a kind of vales, and they can exchange those in for example, for a Coke or something they need, and the rest of it they are like saving it for when they gain their freedom again. So it depends on the prison. That's why we are pushing this bill, so it can be like regulated. And what we think is that having money inside the prison it makes it very vulnerable for these women, because well, the authorities can be asking money from them all the time. And so what we think is like this system in NESA is a very good system, because they have their money and they can well save that money, but also have it for their basic needs inside prison.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Do you have plans to export the project to other Mexican cities or countries?
Yes, we actually have this project called the social franchises, and that's how we want to replicate this program to as many prisons as possible. And because of course authorities of all other states have reach us and like tell us, please come, I want that program in my state. But of course it's difficult for us right now, but we're willing to do this the next year, start replicating this program in other prisons in other states of Mexico.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Wendy. I think that's all the questions we have today. Thank you, everyone. If someone has any other comments, please, if you want to open your microphone or put them on the chat. If not, thank you for joining today. We will be today working with all of the speakers, and I hope you can join too. Thank you, Wendy, for today.
Thank you very much.
And have a very good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.